love with plants, and they will love you back. Imagine this: there are more than 40,000 edible plant species on the planet. Fall in love with plants, and they will love you back. Imagine this: there are more than 40,000 edible plant species on the planet, according to scientists, and within each species there are sometimes thousands of varieties. Each plant, from the rich, savory tomato to the bitter, pungent wild green, tells a story as it evolves along with mankind, developing its own unique colors, flavors, and textures, and catch nutrients. Researchers today know that these plants are teeming with compounds called phytochemicals, which have the power to protect the plant from its threats, such as sun damage and pests. And these plants provide protection to humans too, create a symbiotic relationship between people and plants. We care for plants and pluck their fruits and cast away the seeds to start a new cycle of life. Meanwhile, we are sustained and nurtured by these plants, and we live a long, prosperous life. That's on page 1. I'm turning to page 4. Dear reader, this book is about eating right to keep your brain young and healthy. The recommendations in this book are based on a substantial body of science. The Mind Diet refers to Mediterranean dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Intervention for neurodegenerative delay. It's based on years of cumulative research findings on which foods and nutrients benefit and harm brain function. Not only that, it builds upon a foundation of two proven diets that have been studied for many decades and practiced in good health for centuries. Because this diet is based on research, I do spend time explaining the science. While this can get a bit technical at times, it's not meant to be a textbook. More useful to you, reader, is that it's a practical guide to crafting delicious and nourishing snacks, meals, and eating plans using the latest science and diet and dementia. The Mind Diet on page 6 says covers 15 food groups, including 5 types of foods to avoid. There's twice as many to enjoy. Best foods for your brain include green, leafy vegetables, nuts, beans, berries, poultry, fish, whole grains, olive oil, and wine. Avoid red meat, butter and stick margarine, whole fat, cheese, pastries, and sweets, and fried fast food. The Mind Diet will show you how easy and delicious it can be to keep your mind sharp and feel up to 7.5 years younger in cognitive age. I'm going to skip to the page that deals with the science of the Mind Diet. What follows is, on page 10, a very basic orientation to the brain and general cognitive functions that will be relevant in this book. By no means a comprehensive or even very detailed. Simple information about various sections of the brain will be explained in approachable language. For example, rather than discuss the anterior and posterior brain, words like front and back will be used. After establishing the basic framework and how the brain works, this chapter will explore how the brain disease changes with cognitive disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. The brain has three main parts, brain basics. The largest part of the brain is called the cerebrum. It handles higher functions like reasoning, learning, emotion, speech, fine motor control, correctly interpreting touch, vision, and hearing, and of course, memory. When this book discusses the brain, it refers to the cerebrum. For your information, the other two parts, are smaller and sit under the brain. They're called the cerebellum and brain stem. They maintain functions such as breathing, digestion, body temperature, and balance. The brain has two sides, left and right, called hemispheres. Each hemisphere has 4 sections, one in front, one in back, and 2 in the middle stacked on top of each other. These sections are called lobes, and there are 8 total. Each lobe is affiliated with a certain set of functions. Lobes are not independent, though. It's important to recognize that just like no man is an island, no lobe can act alone. Brain imaging studies have shown how multiple parts of the brain are active at the same time during any given task. The front lobe, aptly called the frontal lobe, just wait, they aren't all named with as much common sense, is the most advanced area of the brain. And if you're interested, frontal lobe is responsible for executive function and may have, if you're Phineas Gage, you might have problems with that area of the brain. You lived a long time ago. Just look it up, Phineas Gage. So I'm going to see if I can find some. What is cognition? To understand what cognitive decline is important to first identify what cognition is. Simply put, it's thinking. But it's far from simple. Cognition affects how a person understands the world and acts within it. It includes all mental skills to carry out complex tasks. How mental fitness gets tested. Mental fitness and decline is measured on 5 basic areas of brain functionality through a variety of tests. 2015 Mind Diet. Research uses 19 standardized tests to divide the following cognition domains: episodic memory, semantic memory, perceptual speed, working memory, and visual spatial abilities. So the mind can function. So I'm going to try and turn to the menu page where it talks about all the different types of good vegetables. I'll just read the basics. Okay. So let's get it. Okay. So the first one is amaranth. It's not a whole grain. It's a leaf. It's not a leaf. Bok choy, cabbage, dandelion greens, galan, salad savoy, Swiss chard, and it goes into winter leafy greens, kale, butter lettuce, collard greens, Manila lettuce, red leaf lettuce, sorrel, watercress, summer leafy greens, endive, Manila lettuce, ong choy spinach, bell peppers, Rocco flower, broccolini, carrots, celery, cherry tomatoes, Chinese eggplant, leeks, mushrooms, onions, parsnips, pearl onions, potatoes, snow peas, yucca root, acorn squash, black salsify, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, buttercup squash, butternut squash, cardoon, cauliflower, coyote squash, Chinese long beans, delicata squash, bacon radish, garlic, ginger, hearts of palm, Jerusalem artichokes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, turnips, artichokes, asparagus, coyote squash, fennel, fiddlehead ferns, green beans, morel mushrooms, peas, vidalia onions, those are sweet onions, armelian cucumber, beets, Chinese long beans, corn, crookneck squash, cucumbers, eggplant, French beans, garlic, red tomatoes, green beans, heart of palm, okra, peas, radishes. Let me just read a little bit of okra. Slippery when wet, when cooked. Okra tastes great paired with tomatoes and stews. Look for firm, brightly colored pods and refrigerate up to 3 days. Okra is an excellent source of vitamin C, good source of folate and fiber. Peas, radishes, shallots, sugar snap peas, tomatoes, Yukon Gold potatoes, zucchini, whole grains. Amaranth, barley, buckwheat, bulgur, corn, acorn, farro, cricket, horsan wheat, quinoa, millet, oats, quinoa, rice, rye, sorghum, spelled teff, triticale, wheat, wild rice. Nuts, almonds, hazelnuts, pine nuts, pistachios, walnuts, Brazilian nuts, cashews, macadamia nuts, pecans, peanuts, beans, black beans, cranberry beans, green soybeans, edamame, fava beans, great northern beans, red kidney beans, light red kidney beans, lima beans, navy beans, pink beans, pinto beans, Mari beans, berries, Barbados cherries, black crowberries, Cape gooseberries, cranberries, huckleberries, pomegranates, red currants, lychee, strawberries, summerberries, black crowberries, black currants, blackberries, blueberries, boysenberries, cherries, sour cherries, elderberries, logans, lychee, mulberries, strawberries, raspberries, fish, olive oil, wine. Then there's foods that harm the brain. Red meat, if you get too much. I'm supposing you get chemicals from animals that were stressed out because they were treated badly while they were alive. Butter and stick margarine. There's some foods you have to limit because your brain will be affected if you consume too much. So the nutrients, good and bad fats. Good fats. The pyramid trial tested a Mediterranean diet supplemented with healthy fats, either nuts or olive oil, and both were effective in producing higher cognitive scores. Bad fats will be saturated and trans. So those are the things that make it tasty. The other ones make the mind function well. Good fats and bad fats. There's monosaturated and polysaturated. So vitamin E, B vitamins. Is it possible to have too much folate, flavonoids, and carnitinoids? So, large section of recipes. But the key thing would be an index. Good glossary. And when I remember, there was a reference that I also saw on a PBS show talking about, this is her book, not my book. Her name is Maggie Moon. She's got some type of doctorate. There was a study on a PBS show talking about how they gave nasal insulin to some people that had a type of cognitive dementia, possibly related to Alzheimer's. They suggested that one feature common to Alzheimer's is an almost diabetic malabsorption of glucose. So the people with diabetes, instead of administering the insulin into their bloodstream, they did nasal insulin, which crossed the blood-brain barrier and improved some cognition. It was a study in Canada, and it's referenced in the back reference of this book.